In June 2020, a bomb detonated in the heart of the European financial system. It wasn't an explosive, but a spreadsheet. Wirecard AG, the pride of the German tech industry and a member of the prestigious DAX 30 index, admitted to a terrifying reality: 1.9 billion euros, roughly a quarter of the company's entire balance sheet, was missing. But missing implies it was lost. The truth was far darker. The money had never existed. It was a digital phantom, a hallucination maintained for a decade to prop up a house of cards that was about to collapse, taking billions of investor dollars into the abyss. To understand the collapse, we must understand the lie. For 20 years, Wirecard was sold as Germany's answer to PayPal, a national champion that would disrupt the stagnant banking world. The face of this revolution was Markus Braun, a CEO who styled himself after Steve Jobs, wearing black turtlenecks and preaching about the digital economy. But beneath the polished Silicon Valley rhetoric, Wirecard's DNA was dirty. Founded in 1999, its initial engine wasn't revolutionary tech. It was processing payments for the industry's respectable banks wouldn't touch: online gambling and pornography. This culture of secrecy didn't disappear as they grew. It became the foundation of their entire business model. By 2010, Wirecard had grown too big for porn. They needed to look legitimate. So they invented a mechanism to fake their growth. They claimed to use third-party acquirers, partners in Asia who processed payments in countries where Wirecard supposedly lacked licenses. This was the black box. Entities like Alam Solutions in Dubai were reported to be processing billions in volume. In reality, investigators later found these were empty shells, small offices with a few staff and no real business. Yet, on paper, they generated the massive profits that drove Wirecard's stock price to the moon. It was a loop of fake invoices and imaginary cash, a technique known as round-tripping on an industrial scale. For years, journalists and short sellers tried to sound the alarm. The Financial Times published investigation after investigation, exposing the holes in the story. In a functioning market, the regulators would have investigated the fraud. But in Germany, something perverse happened. The financial regulator, BaFin, didn't investigate Wirecard. They investigated the critics. In a move that now seems insane, BaFin actually banned short selling of Wirecard stock in 2019, claiming the company was the victim of a global conspiracy. The state apparatus was effectively weaponized to protect the criminals, driven by a desperate nationalistic desire to defend their tech miracle against what they called Anglo-Saxon attacks. The failure wasn't just regulatory. It was an auditing catastrophe. For over a decade, Ernst & Young signed off on Wirecard's accounts. How did they miss a €2 billion hole? The incompetence was staggering. For 3 consecutive years, auditors accepted screenshots and documents provided by third-party trustees instead of simply calling the bank in Singapore to verify the account balance. It was a trust exercise where verification was required. This negligence allowed the fraud to balloon to unmanageable proportions, deceiving thousands of retail investors who trusted the A-approved stamp. While Markus Braun played the visionary, the real architect of the chaos was his COO, Jan Marsalek. Marsalek was not your typical corporate executive. He lived in a Munich mansion opposite the Russian consulate. He threw legendary parties costing millions. And he had a dark secret. He wasn't just interested in fintech. He was obsessed with espionage. In one of the most chilling anecdotes from his time in Munich, Marsalek bragged to dinner guests about his connections to intelligence services. To prove his access, he casually produced a top-secret Russian document containing the formula for Novichok, the world's deadliest military-grade nerve agent. The Novichok document was just the tip of the iceberg. Investigations would later reveal that Marsalek was likely a recruited asset of the Russian GRU since at least 2010. He used Wirecard not just as a piggy bank, but as a geopolitical tool. He traveled to war zones in Syria and Libya, allegedly helping to finance mercenary armies and move dark money for state actors. The third-party network wasn't just for accounting fraud. It was the perfect infrastructure for global money laundering. allowing covert operations to be funded under the guise of commercial payment processing. The House of Cards finally collapsed in June 2020. Under immense pressure, EY finally refused to sign the audit without proof of the cash. Wirecard claimed the €19 billion were in two banks in the Philippines. When contacted, the Central Bank of the Philippines issued a brutal statement. The money had never entered the country. The documents were clumsy forgeries. The game was up. On June 22nd, Marcus Braun was arrested. But Jan Marsalek had one final trick up his sleeve. On June 19, 2020, Marsalek told his colleagues he was flying to the Philippines to clear his name and find the missing money. It was a lie. He boarded a private jet, but instead of Asia, he flew to Minsk, Belarus, a Russian client state. From there, he was extracted to Moscow by the FSB. He entered Russia using a passport under the name Konstantin Byazov, a supposed Orthodox priest. The CEO of a DAX company had successfully defected to the Kremlin, leaving behind a €20 billion crater in the German economy. The years following the collapse have been a slow grind of justice. Marcus Braun has spent years in custody, fighting the longest criminal trial in German history, his defense. He claims he was a victim, duped by the genius of Marsalek. The courts haven't bought it. In September 2024, a Munich court ordered him to pay €140 million in civil damages for breaching his fiduciary duties. But while Braun rots in a cell, the man who really holds the keys to the truth is living a very different life. As we moved into 2025, the story took a turn that fiction writers would reject as implausible. Intelligence reports surfaced placing Marsalek not just in hiding, but active in the Russian war effort. He was spotted near the FSB headquarters in Lubyanka, operating under the alias Alexander Neladov. Even more shocking, photographic evidence suggested he had visited the front lines in Ukraine, wearing a uniform with the pro-war Z insignia. The fugitive banker had seemingly transformed into a soldier of the state. But Marsalek's value to his new masters isn't on the battlefield, it's in the blockchain. In November 2025, the UK's National Crime Agency revealed that the infrastructure Marsalek built at Wirecard has mutated. It is no longer processing payments for porn. It is now a sophisticated crypto laundering network known as SMART and TGR. This network is being used to help Russian elites evade international sanctions, moving billions of dollars through digital exchanges. The fraudster has graduated to become a central banker for the black market. The Wirecard forensic report is not just a story about a company that cooked the books. It is a warning about the fragility of our financial systems. It exposes how a mix of greed, incompetence, and national pride allowed a hostile intelligence operation to nestle itself inside the heart of Europe's economy for 2 decades. Wirecard is gone, wiped from the stock exchange. But the architecture of espionage it built is still alive, still processing, and still dangerous. The company died in 2020, but the crime is still in progress.